Hello again. My name is Steve George, and I'm a Senior Solution Engineer of SAP with a focus on Gold Client. My hope is that you have already watched the previous video about using the Client Exporter function. If not, take a few minutes to watch it first because that content precedes what is shared in this video. This video provides content about the Client Importer function with the primary focus on how to execute the import process. I will share some useful content about the available reporting options, how to delete the data files, and then conclude with a summary of best practices and where to locate additional resources. Let me first share a couple of useful notes before we jump into the how-to content. As noted in the previous video, the Client Exporter function has multiple processing methods available, but it is important to note that they are not interchangeable, meaning that whatever process was used to perform the export, the same process must be used to initiate the import. The UI selects the direct input processing method by default, since this aligns with Qlik's best practice recommendation. And because Qlik recommends using the direct method, that is the only one which will be covered in this video. If you would like to learn more about the other two options, reference the content located in the Gold Client Client Construct User Guide. Let's now move on to the how-to content. Initiating an import using the Client Importer function is really quite simple. Allow me to narrate the steps while walking through the process using the Gold Client user interface. Go to T-code ZGOLD, Z-G-O-L-D. From the Gold Client dashboard, select the Client Importer button. Notice that the direct method is selected by default, so no actions need to be taken in the processing section. The table shows all of the data exports available for import, and these are automatically sorted so that the most recent exports are listed at the top. The user must tick the Select box for an export ID. Typically just one is selected, but multiple selections are allowed. Initiate the import by selecting the Execute in Foreground or Schedule Job buttons. If the user knows that the amount of data being imported is small and should finish quickly, then using the foreground option is okay. But if the amount is significant or unknown, then it is best not to use it because it may time out and the process will fail. In that case, the user must start the process over again using the Schedule Job option. Knowing this, you can see why it is Qlik's recommendation to always use the Schedule Job option, which initiates the process in background and will not time out. I will click the Schedule Job button, which prompts the Conflicting Data Options window to appear. It is worth noting that this prompt also occurs when selecting the Execute in Foreground button. Let's spend a few minutes discussing the Conflicting Data Options. Since Client Importer is primarily used to perform an initial mass load of master data into an empty client, these options are irrelevant in that use case because there is no conflicting data. However, these options would be important anytime the target client already contains data. Notice that the default setting is the Replace option, and this is because using it tends to lead to higher data integrity in the target client. For additional content regarding the Replace and Skip options, please watch the How to Use Import Control to Import Data video where this topic is covered in greater detail. Finally, there is a Delete Table Data Before Import option, which is unique to Client Importer. This option purges all data from the respective tables and then imports the data from the export. It may be helpful to think of this option as Flush and Fill. Please be aware that this option purges all organically created data in the target client, which may be a good or bad result depending on your particular use case. I'm going to use the default option and select the Accept button. The job name field must be populated in the new window that appears. It is also Qlik's recommendation to select the Parallel Processing option, as doing so should commit multiple jobs versus just a single job, thereby leading to the process to finish more quickly. Be advised that the number of jobs that are initiated are based on the settings defined within the Gold Client Parallel Processing config, and the number of background jobs available within your respective environment. Select the Accept button to close the window and initiate the import. Then close the subsequent message. The user will probably want to monitor the job and can do so using T-code SM37, but the option exists to select the Job Monitor button, which will open up SM37 in a separate SAP GUI session. The benefit of using the shortcut is that a filter is applied so that only Gold Client jobs are displayed. At this point, the process is running and will finish in due time. When done, the data will have been loaded in the target client and should be ready for use. Let me now share some potentially useful content. The sizing report provides an output showing the record count total of the exported dataset with a breakdown by table name. There is some sizing related content here as well, but this detail is going to be more useful for Oracle, SQL, DB2 and similar databases, and less meaningful for HANA databases. The conflicting data report provides a summary of data conflicts, and this slide shows an example of its output. These conflicts occur when the exported data already exists in the target client, and so having the summary may be useful since the import can be initiated using the replace or skip option. When running this report, it is advised to run it in background as it may take some time to complete. The runtime will depend on the amount of data. And although the sizing and conflicting data reports can be executed anytime, they both provide more value prior to initiating an import than after. Lastly, be aware that a user can select one or more export IDs and use the Delete Files button to purge the data files from the Gold Client directory. To be clear, this is not deleting data, but rather the files that were generated during the export process. Alternatively, these files can be purged directly from the OS if preferable. This slide contains a summary of best practices that have been shared within this video. With respect to the available processing options, use the direct input method. Use the schedule job function to initiate the import using background jobs, as this will avoid the process timing out. Use the parallel processing option to initiate the import using multiple jobs to help expedite the process. For additional details regarding the client importer function, please reference the Gold Client Client Construct User Guide located on the Qlik Help website. This user guide contains all relevant content for the client importer function. I am happy that you took time today to watch this presentation. I hope that you now have a basic understanding for using the client importer function and its best practice recommendations. After a few executions, I'm sure you will be performing these steps with confidence.